I'm not suggesting my position is completely correct, and I believe that there's many paths, but I'm inviting you to come over to my planet, see what I think, sift that stuff around a little bit. You don't have to agree with me, but I'm not like here to debate necessarily. I'm here to say what it is that I'm about, and I'm willing to back that up. For me, this isn't a matter of opinion, it's a matter of judgment, and I'm willing to back up what I'm saying. When I think about academia, ally work, and direct action, you know, the role of activists as therapists, what's the role of the activist in the academy, right, as an academic, and what's the role of the academy in activism? This is something that was very confusing for me for most of my life, which is hilarious given that I have a PhD and teach at universities, you know. I'm still not convinced that it's a good fit. And it's not an unproblematic fit, and it's not a neutral fit. I always thought about these as very competing projects. One of the reasons for that is I ran Amnesty International's campaign for the death penalty. That's like full-time unpaid work that I did. And I gave that up to go back to school and get a master's in therapy so that I could do other work. So for me, I had to give up this death penalty work that, trust me, is super hard and not many people want to pick up. People don't even think it's a good idea necessarily. Even people who call themselves human rights activists aren't really sure we should do something about our most desperate people being killed by our state. So I had to give that work up to get a master's degree. And from my working class position, that's moving up in terms of my own personal privilege, right? That's not a neutral thing to do. That wasn't an easy thing for me to do. People said, oh, it's great, you must have always wanted to do this. I said, I never wanted to do this. I'm doing this because I need to work with survivors of torture, and I need to have a master's degree to do it. And that's what I did. So what ended up happening for me getting a master's degree is I ended up being a therapist to survivors of torture who wanted me to be their therapist. The communities wanted me, not because I was a great therapist, because I was an activist. People trusted me. People knew me on the street. I'd been seen and spoken. So, you know, I needed to be accountable to that and like what is required of us. So what was required of me was to go to school. And then I was like, okay, but that is it. I'm never going again. Then I run into Alan Wade. And he said, you know, Vic, you want to, you know, not move your own privilege forward and stuff like that. But, you know, your ideas are never going to be open to real scrutiny unless you go public with them, you know. And like I said, he damn near dared me to combine my activism with my academia. I think that these things are really indivisible. And they need to exist within a landscape of solidarity. When I say solidarity, I'm not using this word loosely. I'm borrowing this from activist culture, which is my culture. I'm speaking from my culture. And I'm talking about all of our practices towards doing justice are in a line with each other. There are many paths to doing justice. We just talked in the class that people could be biology students, engineering students. You know, I talked about bus drivers. Everybody has an option in the work that they do, paid and unpaid, to do justice. When I think about activists as academics, this is the question that I'm asking myself, and I think that we ask ourselves as academics. How can we do this work in ways that are congruent with our commitments to social justice? And the way that we do that, I think, is by employing Cavallet's hermeneutics of suspicion. He got this stuff from Paul Ricoeur in Activist Talk, Walking the Talk. What we do is we look at our practices, we look at our theory, we look at our ethics, and we see all the time being open to a question: how am I attending to power? Where's my relationship with ethics right now? Am I walking my talk? This is a way forward. And that's how I thought I might be able to approach academia. Critical theory has not lived up to our hopes for it, right? You know, we haven't delivered a just world. And we need to be held accountable to that when we're saying theorizing is going to do the job. Now that we all understand stuff, why are things in the shape they're in if theory was going to do it, right? And so she says, you know, theory without action, which I'm saying academia without activism, provides words, perhaps an insight that explains certain experiences, but it does not keep someone from dying. And that's our project, right? Many people here, I'm sure, know about the School of the Americas. You have to track it because they changed their name, which is a strategy on their part. Research can be a tool of oppression. One of the things that silenced me, kept me from going on, and kept me from publishing, forget not going on and doing a PhD. I didn't write anything or publish anything. I met with small groups of people who were saying, what you're saying is important, you should put that out there. I'm like, yeah, I know who's going to read my stuff, the School of the Americas. All of the research that was done in Sweden on torture at the end of the Second World War. All of that stuff is in the library at the School of the Americas. They study it way more than we do, right? We know this. So it's not a neutral product. The School of the Americas is the US military school. It's a school for torturers, where South American military are taught how to torture people. Documents, the Pentagon has released its own documents with training manuals for torture, extortion, and execution. This is a point of fact, right? So I know torturers read everything. How can I write about my work with survivors of torture? This was an end game for me. So I was like, academics, sold out, can be used for oppression. Oh, but then sometimes not so much. Research for justice has been absolutely liberatory. All of the cases that we've won in the work that I've done with refugees has been based on Amnesty International's country report. I'm from Amnesty, I'm in that tradition, and I've struggled all the time thinking, we're not activists enough, we're not activists enough. We don't have to be. We have to be in solidarity. This piece is needed, and it needs to be listened to in court. Even really hateful people on immigration boards don't say stuff like, well, is Amnesty really right about Bosnia? They don't. It's taken as a point of fact. So we got to keep the reputation of that organization as an academic organization. But we also have to belong to other places and do direct action. Like we have to do this work together. That's my understanding about this. Death penalty work required me to work very closely with academics and lawyers. And of course, this changed my perspective of the world. And in refugee hearings, like I said. So direct action activists need this resource. We need each other. I found some kind of a path towards a liberatory methodology that allowed me to participate in this stuff. And it came to me through Kathy Richardson. Kathy found a way to do a PhD and write about her culture and people without appropriating, stealing knowledge, or doing anything else oppressive with it. I'm not saying perfectly. Although I guess I was saying that, I'm making a claim. I'm not saying it's perfect. By creating a Métis methodology. When Kathy was informing me about her work and I was telling her, I'm not sure what I'm going to do, I'm not sure if I can do this, she said, Vic, what you need is a solidarity methodology. You're about solidarity. All your work is about solidarity. Hold all of what you do accountable to the principles and practices of solidarity, and you will be okay enough. It won't be a neutral thing to do, but maybe this will help you get a pass. So that gift Kathy gave me is the reason, that I was able to find a way in line with my ethics without spiritual pain to do research that has already been helpful. Like lots of small groups of activists and workers that I work with are using some of the pieces that came forward from their contributions to my work. I hold close a teaching from Noam Chomsky. Social action cannot await a firmly established theory of man and society, nor can the validity of the latter be determined by our hopes and moral judgments. The two, speculation and action, must progress as best they can, looking forward to the day when theoretical inquiry will provide a firm guide to the unending, often grim, but never hopeless struggle for freedom and social justice. And these are imperfect theories. We can't wait for perfect theories, nor do we want them. We're in process. Theory is as alive as ethics. We breathe life into it. We don't want to give birth to dead theory. Nobody wants to do a PhD that doesn't matter. We want to change the world. We want to make the world a different place that it's been, right? So that means we gotta move forward on these kind of things. I get this from all the Latin Americans who've taught me everything, about pedagogy, critical pedagogy. So from Paulo Freire and popular education, the idea of praxis being action and reflection. Very Jaggi Singh. We do something, we slow down, we back it up, we figure out what we did, and we trust that we're going to have some reflection. I'm not saying everything I do is right. I'm saying I'm going to respond to injustice when it happens, right? That's what I'm holding myself to, not necessarily correct actions. Action without reflection is reckless. Reflection without action is useless. That's what I think. That's quite something to say. Freire says reflection without action is pure verbalism or armchair revolution, as is the opposite, pure action for action's sake. So. Okay, well, let's talk about accountability, because that's my favorite stuff, right? This is our path out of this stuff. We don't need to be guilty. We need to be accountable. The way the world is structured, a whole bunch of us do better than the rest of the people in the world at their exploitation and at the risks of their lives. We didn't choose this, but we live this. If your response to that is guilt, you're not helping the planet, right? The response to that has got to be accountability. That's a judgment, not an opinion. So I think there's real limits to accountability. We got to push our prize, what we're after is justice, not accountability. That's not enough. We can't settle for that, right? I think that's super important.